Brutality, stealth, and deception were the hallmarks of America's new enemies in the post-World War II era. Nations without relevant political or military power found in terrorism the way to reach goals they couldn't with good old diplomacy or military force. During this time, the country didn't have a national policy or intelligence to predict acts of terrorism, let alone a rapid response military force with specialized training to counter these enemies. The bad guys were playing by different rules, and the U.S. needed to respond ASAP. Hello and welcome to Warfare Today. The 1970s were marked by traumatic events for Western forces. The Munich Olympics massacre, the Entebbe airport events in Uganda, and the shocking death of 41 Americans in a rescue attempt in Cambodia were major proofs that American forces were ill-prepared to handle critical situations involving hostages. In this decade, 3 men initiated the establishment of an elite unit specialized in dealing with these unconventional situations. Lieutenant Colonel Meyer, the Army's Director of Operations, Major General Kingston, the Commander of Special Forces, and Robert Kupperman, head of the government's Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, who was leading a terrorism study for Nixon. Despite the initiative, the trio wasn't optimistic about support from the military. Opposition to the project came from 2 main sources: the historical bias against elite units, as they had never been popular within the Army until then, and the perception that the new unit would deplete resources available to regular forces. Lieutenant Colonel Meyer then presented the concept of the new unit to Chief of Staff General Bernard Rogers. It would be the first American counterterrorism unit and possess unparalleled capabilities. The idea was for this force to be organized into 3 main squadrons and 1 support squadron, composed of Army members with maturity, courage, motivation, and the physical and mental abilities to act appropriately in any crisis. The new unit was activated on November 21, 1977, and took another 2 years to develop the necessary procedures to conduct missions accordingly. Based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina to this day, it was named the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment-Delta, and it's known across the world as Delta Force. It can also be called CAG, short for Combat Applications Group. The unit was commanded by Colonel Charles Beckwith, who had returned from an exchange period with the British SAS. Now it's time for some shooting practice. Hit that like button to show your appreciation and show YouTube this is good stuff. Thank you. It's important not to confuse Delta Force with the Delta Project or Detachment B-52, which was a special force sent to Vietnam in the 1960s and was also commanded by Colonel Beckwith. Following the SAS model, Delta Force is highly organized. It is divided into squadrons, which are further divided into troops of 16 men. Initially, the unit had only 1 squadron and had to train with only 1911 pistols and M3 subs donated by the CIA. Today, operators have access to the best equipment and infrastructure the Army can provide. The troop numbers have also increased, and since the Gulf War until today, CAG is divided into A, B, C, D, and E squadrons, each with 75 men. The Sabre Squadron is composed of troops of 15 to 20 men, each of which can be subdivided into teams of 4 to 6 men, all sergeants at different levels. These teams are organized along lines of action, but are generally associated with specific specialties such as diving, high-altitude jumping, and mountaineering. Additionally, they have color codes denoting their specific area of expertise, whether it's airborne or maritime. Delta Force also has a communications platoon and an aviation platoon, equipped with AH-6 attack helicopters and MH-6 Little Bird for transport. These operators often work under false civilian identities and registration numbers for covert operations. According to some sources, Delta Force's aviation component originated from the former Sea Spray, a secret and clandestine unit of the CIA in partnership with the Army. Despite having this air squadron, Delta Force can always rely on the support of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment in their global operations. Delta Force also has a special platoon, known as Funny Platoon or Squad E, responsible for intelligence work and includes male and female combat role operators. This platoon infiltrates a country in advance of Delta Force operations to gather intelligence. Delta Force also has smaller units responsible for selection training, logistics, finances, research and development, health, technology, and electronics. It is believed that Delta Force has around 300 to 400 operators on the front lines, and a similar number in support platoons and groups, totaling nearly 800 operators currently. Most Delta Force candidates come from elite Army units such as the Rangers and Special Forces groups. However, candidates can be selected from any Army unit, including the Reserves, National Guard, or other services. Initially, candidates are selected through three main avenues: responding to internal Army announcements at their bases, personal recommendations from sources valued by Delta Force recruiters, and situations where the unit requires specific skills from external individuals not found through the first two methods. If commanders believe an individual would be a valuable addition to the group, a representative interviews the potential candidate. If the assessment is positive, candidates are invited to join the recruitment process. If approved, candidates commit to serving for a minimum of 3 years in the unit. Despite receiving a higher salary compared to their equivalent regular rank, the increase is only around 30%. All Delta members carry exclusive Army cell phones or pagers to be contacted at any time. Regarding aesthetics, Delta Force intentionally relaxes some military standards. Members can have longer hair, earrings, beards, tattoos, and other features to assist in covert operations. In terms of family, all Delta members and their families follow cover stories to prevent their relationship with the unit from being discovered. In terms of training, during Colonel Beckwith's leadership, Delta Force's selection and training processes closely resembled those of the British SAS. Under other commanders, these processes were refined and perfected, keeping pace with the evolution of modern warfare while maintaining the group's basic fundamentals. Due to ample financial resources allocated to Delta Force, numerous shooting facilities were built for close-quarters combat and sniper training. This is because the shooting requirements are extremely demanding, including precision shots at considerable distances. In terms of marksmanship, snipers, for example, are required to achieve 100% accuracy at 1798 feet and 90% accuracy at 2998 feet. A significant portion of training is conducted using electronic equipment to ensure shooting effectiveness, along with simulations in confined environments to prepare Delta members for combat in homes, aircraft cabins, buses, and other settings. The missions of Special Operations Forces in today's scenario are quite varied, and Delta Force is no exception. Often their original assignments have been modified due to political needs, high command requirements, or new types of threats in the modern warfare context. Originally established as a hostage rescue unit, Delta Force quickly expanded its operations to counter-guerrilla missions in South America, training local forces in impoverished countries like Sudan and Egypt, and providing security at high-risk American embassies such as in Lebanon. Another example of operations outside their original role was Delta Force's participation in operations during the Gulf War in 1991, hunting down Saddam Hussein's Scud ballistic missiles. This was driven by political interest in keeping Israel out of the war. Additionally, Delta Force participated in peacekeeping operations in Somalia in the 1990s. These examples illustrate how Delta Force evolved from a hostage rescue unit to a highly secretive unit conducting diverse missions in various scenarios. However, Delta Force's involvement in operations within the domestic territory is extremely rare. Its operators can be engaged as observers, advisors, or direct operators, but they always operate covertly. An unofficially confirmed example is their participation in the FBI's siege of the Branch Davidian religious sect in Waco, Texas, in February 1993. In cases of terrorism threats, weapons of mass destruction, or threats to the government, Delta Force will be involved. While not authorized for domestic operations or hostage rescues, which fall under the responsibility of the FBI's hostage rescue team, Delta Force is exempt from the Posse Comitatus Act, a law that prohibits the use of American military forces against civilians. Since the issuance of Presidential Decision Directive number 25 in 1994, Delta Force has been exempt from this law. Although this unit remained secret for a long time, the Pentagon has recently changed its stance, not only acknowledging its existence but also its importance in the 21st century warfare landscape. While details about its personnel, missions, and names remain classified, it's now recognized as a crucial piece in the chessboard of military operations. Now it's your turn to become part of our elite force. Snipe that subscribe button and join the team. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.